Hello guys, and here we are again. I'll just set everything up, make sure that broadcast is happening as it should. It's a few seconds delay, just let me check on the other screen. Give people time to arrive, hopefully. There'll be a few of you here with me for this final live session this evening. I can't see anything, so if you're watching, give me a thumbs up if you are. If you can see me, just bear with me a moment. Let's make sure that we are okay. Yeah, we're live. I can see it now. Amazing. Cool. So just giving people a minute or two to find their way here. It's come round awfully quick. I can't believe that we are on the end of this week. Thank you again for I'm just having a little sip there, for joining me and for making this the amazing week that it has been. Let's just move that up a little bit, see if we can get a slightly better view. I'm working on a paper bag. It's quite flimsy. They're really like thin fruit bags that I had, and it's quite creased, which I quite like that texture. I've given it a double coating of gesso, but I use clear gesso. So you can't, so you can't see it because it's clear. I'm tired, can you tell? I've used clear gesso so that the brown tint still comes through, but I will probably use some white gesso as well to blend things. I'm going to use some soft pastels, some chalk pastels, just bring them in there so you can see. As someone who veers heavily towards pinks, I'm just going to change it up a little bit this evening or during this session. It's evening for me, and I think we'll go with some beautiful blues. Just pulling a few of these out. These are not high-end, expensive pastels. I do have a few sort of good quality ones, but they're not necessary for this. I'm actually going to be just kind of using the pigments and blending the colours down. I think we probably need maybe one contrast colour as well, so that we've got something to play off of those, as they're really quite dark. Let's bring in a yellow. I was looking at orange, but let's bring in a yellow, and I've just pulled this one out as well. I don't know if I'll use it. This is a Snellier. It's an iridescent white, so I may use a little bit of that as well. I'm going to sketch a really sweet little drawing. I'm hoping that this will just be a kind of a light-hearted and really fun ending to our week together. I'm going to sketch with some charcoal and some chalk. First of all, if you use chalk with soft pastels, get the really cheap stuff. The good quality stuff, the expensive chalks, this is the one time when you don't want to, you know, purchase to the best of your budget. The cheaper stuff has less binders in, so it's softer, and it doesn't go waxy. It will work on almost any surface, and it doesn't load the paper. The paper's got quite a good tooth on it because it's got a couple of layers of gesso on there. So it should grip quite well, and I'm hoping, because I've used clear gesso, white is fine, you don't have to have the clear. Because I've used clear, I'm hoping that when I do my chalky sketch that will show up quite well. So let's make a start. So I'm using the chalk because I know I can make it disappear if I don't like it. So this just gives me a guideline. And my focus for this evening's session was the quotes that I've stumbled across it a few times recently. So I figured that when something keeps kind of cropping up, it's a good time to focus on it. And the quote was, it's attributed to Henry Matisse. And the quote was, "Creativity takes courage," which I am sure you have heard. I'm going to use a dragonfly motif for this. That might be a little bit too far down. Okay, right, we'll scrap that because I've gone too far down immediately. I'm going to go just a little bit smaller and a bit higher up on my page. And these are just some guidelines that I'm putting down. Not worried about the chalk that's already down there because I can move that around whenever I'm ready. So we're just going to put a few guidelines the wings here, that's probably going to disappear off the top, and another wing over here. A super kind of loose, suggestive sketch. It's not, I'm not using a reference. You can use a reference by all means, but I'm just winging it with this and winging it. Oh no, that was so bad. I'm just making this up as I go along. It's a dragonfly design, and that was as far as I'd got. Something sort of sweeping that I can play around just using this technique, share with you guys, and just finish off the week with a really beautiful, relaxing session. Amazing creativity appearing again today in the group. I get so excited. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is check to see what's happened, what's going on, who's posted some new work, and I check in probably more times than I should through the day. I've had a couple of appointments today, so I haven't been on quite as often, but I do really look forward to seeing what you're sharing. So thank you so much for that. Thank you to the people as well who've already signed up for the full course. I hope you're diving in and enjoying yourselves. If you haven't yet, then you know, think about it. I'll talk to you a little bit more about that, or I'll perhaps add another post. I don't want to keep going on and on about it in the sessions here. So I'm going to use a little bit, in fact I think I might put some colour in first. We're just going to add some colour to those wings, and I'm sticking, as I said, I'm kind of sticking with blues and greens because that felt like the right thing to do in this session. So I'm going to add beautiful, beautiful green soft pastel, a little bit to the wings as well. And this is really just make it up as you go along. You're going to give yourself a basic outline, but nothing too structured. As I say, you can reference, it's really easy to find images of dragonflies, but don't get caught up in trying to make them into, you know, completely correct to what you can see. Create your own. It's a fantasy dragonfly, and it's your journal, and it's your time to play. Maybe it won't be a dragonfly, maybe it'll be a butterfly for you, whatever you feel is right. Let's have a little touch of that yellow there as well. I'm not colouring the whole thing in because I'm going to let this pigment blend using some gesso. So I'm working fairly quickly. You might want to work a little bit more slowly. That's totally fine. I've just realised I want some matte medium as well. I've got some to hand, that's fine. So I'm going to use a little bit of, let's go this way. Let's go for the matte medium to blend the colours on the wings, and then we'll use the white gesso more to blend the background colours. Let's get some of this into a pot. I can't have it out ready too early because it will just dry up and be ruined, so you have to bear with me while I figure that out. I'm using a fairly old scrappy brush. I might switch it out if I want something a little bit more refined, but I'm not too worried. This is, you know, going to be quite loose, and then we'll tidy it up at the end. So this is matte gel medium over clear gesso. You can do this over normal gesso as well, and you can blend it using the gesso. But because I'm working on clear gesso over the paper bag, and I've sealed this really well with 2 coats of clear gesso, I'm using the matte medium rather than gesso to fix the pigments into place and blend them together, because then you get the tint of that lovely brown paper bag kind of glowing up through there, which I really like. I may use a little bit of acrylic colour as well, but I'm kind of thinking that we can get through this mostly just using these soft pastels. This is a non-traditional way of using soft pastels, just using them literally as, well, they are just sticks of pigment basically. The softer they are, the less binders they have in them, but mixing them with other media is what I call a non-traditional approach, and it fixes them into place by using things like gesso and matte medium to blend them and sit them into position. Means that they don't smudge like they would if they were left in their kind of natural chalky form. You also don't need a special paper particularly, but it does really help if you prime whatever surface you're wearing with something that's got a bit of tooth. If your paper's very smooth, pastels don't work brilliantly over very smooth surfaces because you can't get a lot of pigment into the paper. It needs to have a bit of texture, a bit of tooth for the pigment, the pastel pigment, to kind of sit into the paper. And even then it will have a limit depending on how smooth or rough your paper is, and how much pigment you lay down. That will all be affected by, that will all affect how much pigment you can get on there. Sorry, I'm losing my words. Let's put that to one side and we'll come back in with some charcoal. I seem to have cluttered myself up really quickly. I'll just make a little bit more space around there. Just a reminder that session 1 will expire in a few hours, and then each one will disappear daily after that. Let's get some, I'm coming straight in on this wet with the charcoal. I'm going to use that as my black soft pastels. Don't tend to be quite so dense. They can be a little bit waxy, the ones I have anyway. So I actually prefer mixing charcoal with soft pastel work. Doesn't really matter on something like this because it's not a pastel painting. This is just a way of using them to lay down pigments, which is why I'm using like a non-branded version. I'm not using kind of high-end ones. I have got some fairly fancy ones. I think those are from Jackson's. They're hardly used, they're quite new to me. And I also really like the sort of quality Daler Rowney ones. They've got a really beautiful quality to them, and of course Sennelier, which is the sort of the higher end brand. Again, their pastels are handmade and they are really beautiful. I'm using matte gel medium again to set this into place. You can also use, you could use even PVA glue would work. It would just give you a shiny finish, but it will fix the colours down. I'm not going to go over the whole thing because it's still wet. Ideally, you would perhaps dry this before you fix them down, but we're, as ever, working on a kind of a live session, and watching paint dry or watching me blast things over with a hairdryer is very dull viewing, so it's not something I want to happen. Kind of like how the pigment is more to one side of the body there, so I'm going to actually emphasize that with a little bit more charcoal. Just blend that in, and it is wet, so probably that will fix anyway, but I'll just blend that a little more with, I switched out to a slightly finer brush, and I'll blend that a little bit more with my medium and fix it into place. So while that's drying, let's have a look at what's happening in the background. I'm going to switch out now to some white gesso, and that will be what I blend out my colours with. So I'm going to stay with similar colours. Maybe go, I've got some of the, I haven't got some of that green on there, and that blue's really gorgeous as well, but I was kind of saving that, if that's the right word. I was kind of saving that for a little bit of extra detailing on the wings. So I'm going to go with a light blue and mix it in with some chalk for just a sort of a sky effect. This will go a lot lighter because I'm going to bring in some white gesso and just quickly lay that down as background. If you're working on a white background with white gesso, then it's going to look slightly different. I just really love the contrast and the fact that you can see, having decided to use a paper bag, it's a really great chance to let that kind of show through. Just get a little bit of gesso in my lid there. Plenty of water. You do need to make sure the page is well sealed, especially if it's thin like this. If you decided to work on a paper bag, you need to make sure you've sealed it really well. You can use gesso on both sides, It's getting in there with my finger because my brush is super scrappy. But I don't want to use a good brush for the white gesso because it does kind of wreck it a little bit. So I kind of pulled out the older brushes. I've left space down here deliberately. I'm just going to blend those pigments together into a kind of a sky blue, keeping it a little bit broken because then you don't lose the texture of the paper. And I'd like to add my quote, "Creativity takes courage." The reason that was in my mind, other than the fact that I just seem to have come across it in a couple of different places recently, was just acknowledging that within the group this week, and to acknowledge that with all of you, that it doesn't matter where you are on your creative journey. Maybe you'll just do these few days and that's it for you. Maybe it will spark a more regular practice for you. Maybe you're going to dive in feet first and join me on the full course. Whatever works for you, you are exactly where you're meant to be. And you've already taken that step, that brave step of having a go. So it's a kind of a celebration of that, and also just a way of me acknowledging that, that's what you've done, and celebrating the fact that you've just screwed up that courage and maybe tried something new. Perhaps you've not shared work in a group before. I'm always quite timid about that myself. I've got better at it. The more you do it, the easier it gets. But it can be a super daunting. So that's a really big deal. And without you guys doing that and sharing and encouraging each other, we don't have the amazing vibe and the learning and the shared views. So just seeing different interpretations of how people interpret the same session, the same prompt, in a different way is just, it's just fantastic. And it's really freeing if you're not sure, if you feel like your work's, because you don't want it to look like mine necessarily. It can, and that's a really great way to learn. But also seeing someone else's take on it can really spark an idea. I'm going to just sit this into a little bit of a yellow glow, and I'm putting that pigment on, and this gesso is still damp, so I can just push that in with my finger, and that's going to be enough to fix that pigment into place. It's just adding a little more depth and glow to my very simple, slightly scrappy dragonfly. And you can hear the way that pastel is kind of rubbing into the tooth of the page. I have got that lovely texture. The paper's moving a little bit. I did tape it to my background, but it's stretching a little bit, so I'm keeping a fairly light touch. I really hope that I don't manage to tear this by the end. Like I say, 2 coats of gesso is quite a good seal, but I perhaps could have given it a coat of gesso on the other side as well, just to make it that little bit stronger, but I didn't, so it is what it is. But I kind of like that movement, and the fact that it is quite sort of flimsy and delicate. That sits quite well with the subject matter as well, being the dragonfly. So just pulls this little chap forward, and as I say, it's not quite dry enough now to lift off my finger. It's really kind of going into the paper really well, but I can feel that it's quite soft and damp as I rub that in, so that's working really well. The medium is about dry too, which is awesome, because I can add a little bit more. I may need some more medium on there. I'm going for just a stronger blue towards the lower edge of those wings. I don't want to lay it over too thick. It would be really neat and tidy if I made these pigments more solid, but just pushing in gently with my finger, you can still see the textures. I kind of like that little crease there. We're just going to let it all do its thing. The brighter green, let's bring that to the centre of the body there between the stripes. It just emphasises the green down the middle here. I'm going to fix this in with a little bit more medium. Tempted to lay in more pigment, but I also really love how the paper is showing through, and this very delicate texture. It's surprisingly strong actually with the gesso layers over the top. So I'm just going to fix that down quite lightly. It will lift it a little bit. This is the matte medium. It's not clear gesso, it's just acrylic matte medium to fix that into place. If you use PVA glue or a gloss medium, obviously you'll have a gloss finish, but it will do exactly the same job. It will seal it into place in exactly the same way. Oh, I feel like I haven't stopped talking this evening. I just catch my breath a moment. It's been a super long week, super amazing. I'm just so thrilled with the beautiful community that we have happening here. And hopefully you'll still be diving in and sharing and having fun over the weekend as well. And if joining the full course is not for you, that's fine. Please do, you know, enjoy, squeeze every drop of joy and creative inspiration that you can out of these. I can't remember if they have feelers, that's why I was hesitating, but you know, I'm just going to give them anyway. And a suggestion of eyes as well, because I'm sure they have eyes on the top. But maybe I should have looked up a reference, but it's okay, because I did say this is just your fantasy dragonfly, so it doesn't need to be exactly as is. I'm going to use the iridescent pastel. This is a white iridescent pastel just over the wings to add a little bit more sheen. You could do the exact same thing with a metallic acrylic. You could also use white gel pen. Basically anything white or iridescent will go over this because it's basically gesso. It's just been tinted with the pastel pigments, so pretty much anything will go over it. I wouldn't use a chalk because that's going to sink into it now, especially if you're working as I am on a slightly wet surface. But I'm just going to go for it. I won't say I'm just going to wing it, because that was the worst joke ever. It wasn't even on purpose. I'm just going to add a few little suggestions of veins and patterning in those wings. I will need to clean the pastel off so that it doesn't soak right in, but I'll do that straight away, just wipe that off. This is just loose and free, but it does glow. It has that extra glow. Working over wet, this because the matte medium is still wet, this will fix into place. It'll move a little bit as it dries. It'll fade slightly, but not enough to disappear completely. It will still have that lovely sheen. I'd quite like to have a bit of sheen on the body as well when I look at it. So I did mention acrylic will work, so I'm going to grab myself a little bit of, I think, silver, which I didn't have to hand. Bear with me one moment. I'll find it. Okay, found it fairly quickly. That's good. I have to spend ages searching. So this is just this is a super cheap one that was actually I think it was from a stage background project or something, but it was discarded at the end. So, being your typical can't throw supplies out kind of person, I had to dive in and rescue it. And like I say, it's not particularly high end. It's not particularly good quality. Oh, I'm dripping. One moment. So that also doesn't soak in too far. So my brush a little bit too wet. I'm using my finger as a palette because I know I'm only going to need a tiny little bit of this. Now I'm kind of seeing all this opportunity for it to be quite shiny and iridescent. I'm just wondering whether I might go completely crazy and add a little bit of glitter. Not generally a glitter person. I'm not really sure where it is though. Well, maybe not. Maybe we won't add glitter then. But it's certainly an option. I'm not gonna do it because I know that I'll regret it and I'll be clearing up glitter for 3 weeks. Which is why I don't like glitter, because it's impossible to use it in a controlled manner. It seems to be impossible for me to use it in a controlled manner anyway. The wings are just a teeny bit flat for my liking, so I'm gonna just couldn't get all the way through without using a little bit of paint chrome. I'm going to just bring in a few touches of pink while this is still wet and just push that in. It's just starting to dry, but it's tacky, so it's just enough. Just want to add, it's just another dimension by adding that slightly warmer colour in. I kind of like that because the blue is then a little bit softer. I can see that silver starting to dry now. Let's make the black a little bit blacker. Again, you can see it's quite wet. Obviously, if you're working off camera, that will be less of an issue because you can dry it between layers. Just be aware that your paper will reach a point of saturation at some time. I think this is dry enough to write on, and I think I'm going to actually do it with charcoal, which might be a bit chunky, I don't know. No, I kind of like, because it's messy and fun and light, and when I put this into my art journal, I'll probably coat the whole page with acrylic matte medium, and then cover this with a piece of paper and rub it down like that, so you're not putting any more stress on the paper. It's held up surprisingly well, a little bit better than I thought it might, but I want to end this this week and this spread with the quote. If I could do it without now talking about how amazingly well this paper has held up. Creativity takes courage, and that is celebrating you and me a little bit, I guess, because I do get super nervous. Like after the first day, I really look forward to the live sessions, but that first day, oh my days, I didn't do anything all day. All I did was I kept finding things to do that I didn't need to be doing. Maybe I'll just spend an hour repotting some plants and putting the vacuum around and changing the curtains for different ones. Like all stuff that wasn't in the plan. It was a non-achieving day because my nerves wouldn't let me do anything else. So a big thank you for making this such an amazing week. And a little celebration of my own courage as well, as I'm putting that into this page. It's just the bottom edge of the bag there, where the seal was, so I'm going to hold it flat. This is just dry enough to take the charcoal, but I think it's probably still damp enough to absorb enough pigment for the writing to last. Oh my goodness, I forgot how to spell courage for a moment there. I nearly screwed that up really badly. Have a sweeping Y like the sweeping G like the Y. Many moons ago, you might have heard me mention this before, many moons ago I did train as a calligrapher. My actual handwriting is quite scrappy because I like to hold things really loosely and scribble really fast. But I can do kind of fancy old English calligraphy. Sometimes my writing's really tidy and beautiful on my art journal pages. Other times it's just scribble because it's just expressive and fun. But I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to let it dry. I'm going to share an image of it when it's dry and it's actually in my journal. Very carefully before this dries too much, because that gesso will seal quite hard. Just get these edges off. I love that it's kind of bled underneath the edges as well. That sort of emphasizes the texture of the paper. If you've only got charcoal, or you've only got sort of 1 or 2 colours of pastel, you can still do this. You could add watercolour, you could add acrylic paint. You don't need to have the exact same supplies for this. But there's also freedom to working on something that is a throwaway item, although I'm being really precious about this now because I really like this paper bag. I've become invested and attached in my paper bag. You know, working on something that is junk or a throwaway item is quite freeing in itself, because if you don't like what you do, you don't have to keep it. You don't have to put it in your journal. You haven't done anything, and you learn more from those pages which just, you know, those projects which don't quite work, because the next time you take that approach, the next time that you try that technique, you have learned so much more. So just a fun, light-hearted, glowing a little bit, I kind of like that, brave session. Thank you so much. Keep on creating, keep on sharing. I'll be back in the group later. I'm really looking forward to just seeing the whole journey continue. Do be aware that the sessions will expire sort of day by day, starting from today. So watch them in order if you're catching up. We've still had people coming in to the group from sort of yesterday, and even today I had a few more people wanting the emails. There are a few people playing catch up, so just to remind you that they will expire unless you would like to join me, and there is 35% off, so look out for that post and I'll share that link again. Also, one more thing, subscribing. A lot of you are already subscribers and receiving emails. A lot of people came into the group and were cautious about giving out their email address initially when joining. I totally understand that. But hopefully if you have been here and joined me for some of these sessions, you will see that there is, you know, there's an element of trust there. So if what I'm doing is interesting to you, then I will drop a subscription form in the group as well, in case you change your mind and would like to receive emails. I send a couple a week. You probably get that many from your local supermarket, and I promise you mine are much prettier than that. And obviously you can unsubscribe anytime. So if you'd like to join me as a subscriber and receive emails and updates and special subscriber offers, I have got a new course coming out in December, which will be completely free, just a workshop, and it will be completely free to subscribers, but you have to be receiving emails to get that discount code, which will give you 100% off a special little class that I'm working on for December. Guys, thank you so much. I'm not going to keep you any longer. I really look forward to seeing your creations. I hope you have a go at this and just working on a different surface. Maybe work on some cardboard, go and tear up a cardboard box and see what all that corrugated panning does for you. But have fun, play around, and be brave, get creative, and dig deep into that courage. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you soon. I will pop up at some point over the weekend, I'm sure. And I'll be watching out for your creations in the meantime. Thanks, guys. Speak soon. Bye.